But there's only one kind. So hush now, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you by and by. Move on up and keep on wishing. Remember your dream is your only scheme. So keep on pushing. Take nothing less than the supreme best. Do not obey rumors people say, but you can pass the test. Just move on up to a greater day. With just a little faith, if you put your mind to it, you can surely do it. Just move on up. Move on up. But move on up. Watch out, but just move on up. But move on up. Move on up.
All right, everybody. Hello, hello, good evening. Hi, can you see me all? Cool. Um, 1 second here.
Hello.
All right. Okay, we are all set. Um, First, I just want to say thank you all for being here. We really, really appreciate it in the life of Zoom and everything that's going on. We appreciate your time this evening, so we'll go ahead and get started with things. Um, So again, thank you for joining us tonight for our virtual town hall. We are very, very pleased to have you all here on the call with us. My name is Ashley Horton. I am the Community Outreach Director for Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson. As a lifelong constituent of the First District, a Black woman, a wife, and a mother, I am very proud of our leadership, our commitment to challenging the failures of our current system. Make no mistake that we are living in unprecedented times, and Brandon has remained focused on the very needs of our community. Our demands are very clear. As residents of the First District, we need resources. We need access to quality healthcare, affordable housing, infrastructure improvements, and investments in our communities that provide and encourage sustainable life. Our Commissioner, Brandon Johnson, has worked tirelessly with a mask and following all CDC guidelines, of course. It is very hard when he is in such high demand to be everywhere, but he has made it happen. Working to eradicate and challenge the very systems and calling for progressive change that our communities need. He has been on the forefront, the Cook County boardroom, Zoom, and on the picket lines, fighting for our futures. Commissioner Johnson has answered the call that so many would shy away from. Never forgetting our seniors, children, and all working families. And I am honored to serve the First District with our team and with Brandon. Please join me and welcome our Cook County Commissioner of the First District, Mr. Brandon Johnson.
Wow, well, thank you, Ashley. Not bad. I'm really, really grateful for your work and your leadership and what you mean to the First District. And so thank you all who have decided to take some time out this evening to be with us. We are joined by some very dynamic guests, some leaders from all over the First District that will walk us through the various activities as well as the investments that have taken place over the course of this last year. As Ashley indicated, I'm very proud to be here tonight. I really am. To discuss the state of our district. And of course, we wish we could all be together in person, but we understand that that's just not possible right now. So we're all making sacrifices to protect our families and of course our communities. We're missing friends and loved ones and of course, important celebrations like birthday parties and graduations. But we're working and learning from home and we're all struggling to make sense of it all. And it's important to acknowledge this. And again, I thank you for it. I thank you for all of you, your commitment during these very difficult times. We are certainly living in uncharted times. They're challenging to say the least. Many of us have never experienced this before. We're facing a global pandemic that has taken the lives of more than 200,000 Americans. Well over 5,000 of those Americans live right here in Cook County. And at the same time, we're confronting centuries-old pandemics of institutionalized racism that we see playing out literally on television, smartphones, on a daily basis. The lives that have been lost during this tragedy touched the First District in a very intimate way. Like the Relf family, where Amy Relf, who is a longtime resident of the First District, and her brother Reggie, was one of the first lives recorded lost during this global pandemic. As she serves as a public school teacher and as an advocate for young Black lives, that the life of her brother will never be forgotten. And of course, as your commissioner, I'm certainly steadfast.
Oh, because I got on Bluetooth, duh.
In my commitment to addressing these crises. Nothing is more important to me than advancing the health, welfare, and economic security of our district's residents, especially during these difficult times. So tonight, I'd like to give you a quick overview of the work that we've done and the historic accomplishments that we've achieved in the last year. As your commissioner, my team, we've advocated for seniors on the front line and frontline workers that have helped provide support for many of our families. I'm very, very clear about the challenges that Cook County residents experience, where half of our residents in Cook County cannot afford to make rent. So we blocked evictions and mortgage foreclosures. Of course, as a former public school teacher, everybody knows my life work before I became a Cook County commissioner. I was proud to stand with the striking teachers in the city of Chicago as they fought for nurses, social workers, and counselors. I was also very proud to stand with the workers at the Loretto Hospital as they fought for a raise for Austin. These are very difficult times, but I'm very clear that the working conditions, as well as the conditions in which our children learn in, as well as our residents rely upon with healthcare, are tied together. And of course, through our legislative advocacy, we've secured millions of dollars of resources for the First District. This funding, of course, has been used to provide critical PPE for all of our municipalities, for housing and food, jobs and healthcare, mental health care services for the most vulnerable residents. We fought for those resources to be in the First District, and we got them. Several county agencies, particularly in the First District, are here this evening, and they're very aware of those investments. But as we look ahead, of course, Cook County will face some very tough financial decisions. There will be individuals that will say we cannot provide the necessary services that we deserve. There will be billionaires that will literally spend millions of dollars to block our progress. But I'm happy to report that as your county commissioner, that I am not going to vote for a budget that cuts, that closes, that consolidates, that puts an end to the vital services that our county so desperately needs. And so that's why we have to push back against these austerity budgets that have crippled our communities for decades. Of course, I'm happy to report that we have received over $3 million through the Federal CARES Act and stimulus money that has gone through to 8 municipalities in the First District. And some of those municipalities are here today to talk about that. But it's not just this pandemic that we've been challenged by. It's also the fact that we have civil unrest because of the gross inequities and brutality that happens at the hands of the state. And the same communities that have been impacted and that have borne the brunt of the deaths of COVID are the same communities that have been over-policed and brutalized in a way that is unconscionable. And so that's why I was proud to sponsor a landmark resolution calling for justice for Black lives. And in that resolution, we are calling to redirect dollars away from incarceration, the failed system of incarceration, that we are calling for the redirecting those dollars into vital and critical services like housing and healthcare and transportation and broadband. And so, as I said earlier today, this moment is like none that we've seen before. And so that's why I'm committed today to continue to push for the type of transformation that our county so desperately needs. And though these are difficult times, we will continue to push for equity and justice. And with that, I'm very proud that the First District is served by one of the most dynamic congressional leaders in all of Washington. He's my neighbor. He's just like myself. He's a former public school teacher in Chicago. I'm so happy and so privileged to be joined by the Congressman of the 7th Congressional District, Congressman Danny Davis.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. It is so good to be with you. And it's also good to be your neighbor. So if I just need to see you, I can walk around the corner, down the street a little bit, and there we are. But I'm also pleased to be on with all of those individuals who will be with us this evening I'm going to end up having to run off because we're actually voting, but that's quite all right because I will be done and gone then. But let me just say it's good to see the kind of work that you're doing, the kind of interaction with the residents of the community who get an opportunity to see firsthand what is taking place and what's going on. It's hard to talk about what's happening federally without it sounding political. And I always say to people that you really can't do government unless you do politics. I mean, the two kind of swing together. We have on the table another HEROES Act. We call it a scaled down version. We had $3.4 trillion on to try to get some more relief. And of course, the Republicans didn't really want to deal with that and have not dealt with it. Now we've come back and we have on the table $2.2 trillion that we hope we can get some agreement on before the week is over so that we can come back with the $600 that individuals have been getting for federal unemployment, so that we can have some money for Loretta Hospital and other disproportionate share hospitals, so that we can have some money for state and local governments so that people like Mayor Harvey don't have to go broke and other local governments don't have to go broke. Fortunately, we can borrow and do all kind of things. They can't. They've got to make sure that they balance their budgets and we can do deficit spending. I'm pleased that in the new act where we had to scale down, we still were able to maintain $250 million in there for reentry activity. And of course, that's near and dear to my heart. And I know it's near and dear to Commissioner's heart and the hearts of everybody who think people ought to have a second chance in life. So the money is on the table. Whether or not it's going to happen, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. Of course, a lot of attention is being given right now to the new justice for the Supreme Court. That's going to be a lot of conversation. The presidential candidates are debating tonight. That's going to be a lot of conversation. So let me just commend you again and thank you, Commissioner, for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this great discussion that you've got going on this evening. I'm going to stay a while and listen, and then I'm going to run off and vote the second vote. I just finished one vote. We got another one coming up, but congratulations on the outstanding work that you're doing, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Congressman Davis, for your work and your commitment to justice, and your life and your legacy and the work that you have completed has certainly put the first district in a much stronger position. And we need you to continue to fight for the resources that we deserve and need in this moment so that county government continue to work and flourish. So if you have questions for the congressman, by all means, place them in the chat and we'll do our best to get those questions answered. I'm also very happy to be joined by another tremendous leader in the first district. He's the Senate president of the state of Illinois. Also an individual that I used to work for a long time ago. He is my state senator who was not able to be with us today, but he's certainly fighting for the type of progressive revenue that we so desperately need, and that's through the fair tax. But he did leave us a video to offer just some words of what the fight has been like in Springfield. And so if you all please turn your attention to the screen, and here is the Senate President of Illinois, Senator Don Harmon. We need to try that again. We can't hear, we can see them, but we cannot hear them, Karen.
Sorry. My batters. Share screen. Hit this. Start to share. This now.
I think it's getting late.
No.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, virtually, this evening. I want to thank my good friend Brandon Johnson for organizing this meeting of the First County Board District constituents. And it's an honor to be the first Senate President ever to appear before you by Zoom. Brandon asked me to speak a little bit about the fair tax. This is an initiative I've been working on for the better part of the last decade. And a year ago, when the General Assembly met at the beginning of this General Assembly, we were finally able to present the question to the Illinois voters whether we should amend our Constitution to adopt a fair tax. So the General Assembly proposed it, and now it's up to the voters to ratify it at the November election. The text of the amendment is really very simple. It simply strikes the 1970 requirement that the income tax be imposed at a flat rate and would allow Illinois to join the federal government and almost every other state that imposes an income tax in adopting graduated rates, a fair tax. Now, we understood that voters would want to know how it impacted them before casting their ballot. So we passed a law at the same time that would impose a new set of tax rates if the constitutional amendment is ratified by the voters. And under that new set of tax rates, 97% of Illinois taxpayers would see a reduction in their income tax bill. Now we're asking the millionaires and billionaires to pay a little bit more to pay their fair share. But I think that's fair in part because the folks at the upper end of the income scale have so much more invested in the future of Illinois, and it's a reasonable request that we'd ask them to pay a little bit more. Now, we expect the fair tax will generate about $3.5 billion in additional revenue. Sadly, it's not going to fund a whole bunch of new programs, but it's going to allow us to live up to our constitutional obligation to fund education in particular. And this, I hope, is the precursor to meaningful property tax relief, because that, more than the income tax, is what really kicks working families and middle-class families in the teeth. So again, it's not radical. Most of our neighboring states have a fair tax. The states to which we would like to compare ourselves all have a fair tax. And our rates would compare favorably to any of those. So it's not a competitive disadvantage. If anything, it's a competitive advantage. Now, I've been saying for most of the year, since we passed our budget in the spring, so much of what we're doing now is based on things we don't know, but at least we know that we don't know them. We don't know right now the full depths of the pandemic and what it's going to do to our economy, the depths it'll take us. We don't know what we're going to have to spend in response to the pandemic. We don't know if voters in Illinois are going to ratify the constitutional amendment. We don't know who's going to be in charge in Washington for the next 4 years. And we don't know when the Congress is finally going to wake up and realize they have to provide support for state and local governments who are reeling from the revenue shortfalls caused by the pandemic, though I believe that they will after the election, if not before it. But that's all the more reason for us to take the future into our own hands and see what the voters say. I'm eager for the vote. I'm confident that 97% of people who would see a reduction in their own tax bills will vote in their own economic interest and support the fair tax. And then our work begins to make sure that the new tools are used to adopt a fair tax structure, to provide property tax relief, and to finally live up to our obligations to be the primary source of funding for primary and secondary education. So looking forward to being with you in person next time. Thanks for the flexibility and allowing me to appear by video. And Brandon, take it away. Have a great meeting. You're a terrific representative of our district, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Wow. Well, thank you, Senate President Don Harmon, for his leadership. you all, the first district is represented by some of the most dynamic people at every level of government. And one of our champions is a dear sister to the first district. She has been a champion for so many of the causes that are important to us throughout Cook County. When the George Floyd murder took place, Black elected officials wanted to offer some direction and some hope for the people that we serve. And with us today is one of those dynamic leaders that represents not just the first district, but the entire state of Illinois, and has helped us establish a real tremendous path forward of establishing a Black agenda that can actually help transform our communities. I'm very humbled and honored to be joined by the Senate Majority Leader, Kimberly Lightford. Leader Lightford.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the introduction and for inviting me to be a part of your State of the State address. I'm very excited to be here with all of my colleagues in public service and, of course, all of our constituents across the district. I want to, in my 5 minutes, speak as quickly as I can because there's so much I want to share with everyone. I want us to just reflect on so much has happened in this short period of time and lead us up to why I feel it's important that the Black Caucus pursue an agenda to rid systemic racism in our state. So we started on May 24th when the General Assembly sent Governor Pritzker the fiscal year 2021 budget. We had spent 2 months at this time in a coronavirus pandemic that was disproportionately impacting Black Americans more than any other race. And there was no answers, no results. We were all, hey, we need a center over here. We need more PPE. We need testing sites. It was hugely noted the disparities in healthcare that were plaguing us. So we're all forced to stay home. Stay-at-home order is in position, and we're trying to figure out how to take a body of 177 legislators and staff and all to Springfield to pass a budget. Somehow we got that done. The very next day, George Floyd is murdered by police in Minneapolis, Minnesota. On May 31st, 6 days later, the first round of looting occurred in Chicago. On June 2nd, the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus joined with the Joint Caucus. Commissioner Brandon Johnson had this excellent idea that we began to have days of action. But we started first with just the Black Caucus hosting our own press conference after the looting took place to announce those days of action. On June 4th, the Black and Latino lawmakers, we held our own press conference to condemn violence and call for unity. On June 4th through the 7th, the Black Caucus, along with the Joint Caucus, held days of actions on the West Side, South suburbs, and Western suburbs. 3 days later, on June 10th, Governor Pritzker signed the fiscal year 21 budget. On June 19th, Juneteenth celebrations were held across the state like nothing we've ever seen before. On June 30th, the video of Eric Lurie being beaten by Joliet police surfaces 5 months after the incident. He died in custody. On July 7th, the Joliet police sergeant who blew the whistle on the death of Eric Lurie in police custody was stripped of his police powers and placed on administrative leave. On July 17th, Congressman John Lewis dies after a battle with pancreatic cancer. C.T. Vivian, an American minister, author, and close friend and lieutenant of Martin Luther King Jr. during the Civil Rights Movement, passes the same day. Vivian grew up in Macomb, Illinois, and was a WIU alumni. On July 28th, I was reinstated as a Joint Black Caucus chair with the idea of how do we push a Black Caucus agenda. On August 9th, our second round of looting occurs across downtown, the Magnificent Mall, and after Chicago police officers shot and injured Latrell Allen, a 20-year-old in Inglewood, hours earlier. On August 10th through the 12th, the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus hosted our 4-day retreat to begin to identify what that Black Caucus agenda should look like. We heard from researchers and experts all across the spectrum. On August 23rd, Jacob Blake is shot multiple times in the back and at point blank range by Kenosha, Wisconsin police in front of his children. On August 26th, the Milwaukee Bucks refused to play Game 5 of the first round of the NBA playoffs, inspiring the league to join in protest after the Jacob Blake shooting. The NWBA, some NLB teams, Naomi Osaka, a tennis player, and other athletes all joined in solidarity. On August 31st, the Chicago police fatally shot 26-year-old Miguel Vega in Pilsen. The shooting remains under investigation. On September 1st, the Legislative Black Caucus held our first press conference at the Westside Justice Center to launch our 4 pillars of policy. The first hearing regarding the pillars was held at the Joint Senate Criminal Law and Public Safety Committees to discuss police accountability and use of force. On September 15th, the Joint Senate Criminal Law and Public Safety Committees discussed disparities in sentencing. On September 16th, the Black Caucus launched our second pillar, Education and Workforce Development, at Chicago State University. The Joint Senate Education and Higher Education Committees held hearings on early childhood education funding and data. And on September 18th, the U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies after a battle with pancreatic cancer. I wanted to give us an update of all that has transpired since May 24th. It has been significant in measures. So 2020 has been one heck of a year. All of that pretty much led me to the idea that not only did we need an agenda, but we needed an agenda that will rid systemic racism and policies. I began to do research and I saw that there was so much legislation that we passed over the years, both chambers, signed by the governor, never was implemented. Agency, workers, directors, their middle management staff and below never implemented policies that the Black Caucus had worked hard to get done so that it could improve the quality of life for Black Americans in Illinois. And also from that, I also saw that there was other initiatives on the books that would pass one chamber but get held up in the other chamber. And a lot of it looked very intentional. Once you begin doing that research and you really dive yourself deep into it, you can see the systemic racism in the state government's policies. And so throughout our history, there has been moments when different communities have risen in the fight for equity. But I do not think I can say that in my lifetime, there has been a movement as widespread as we see today. I feel blessed to see people of all backgrounds, ethnicities, and religions proclaiming that Black Lives Matter in unison. We as the Black Caucus are committed to the work it takes to make their call to action a reality in our state. We are seeing some of the worst economic devastation since the Great Depression as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. And in the midst of all that uncertainty and loss, we are still seeing the murder of Black people at the hands of the police. Racism is a pandemic of its own, and it is so ingrained in our system that it cannot stop as we face a healthcare crisis. We saw Black people succumb to the virus at disproportionate rates. Our children struggling through online learning and economic loss in areas where people had very little to lose. The veil of ignorance was lifted for many who had chosen to join our movement. I witnessed so many people of all walks of life protest together that Black Lives Matter. And I really want to thank them. I stood next to people that do not look like me, have never lived the Black experience, but were out there protesting, holding up signs and engaging that Black lives do matter. So as a result, our package, our 4 pillars, our first pillar is criminal justice reform, violence reduction, and police accountability. Pillar 2 is education and workforce development. Pillar 3 is economic access, equity, and opportunity, which will be released on Thursday. And then healthcare and human services is our 4th and final pillar, which will be released on October 9th, next Friday, in East St. Louis, which is one of the poorest communities in the state. We have already launched the criminal justice reform, the violence reduction and police accountability pillar, as well as the education and economic development. And we will be following up with the last 2 pillars this week and next week. All of this work will lead us up to veto session, at which point we hope to have equipped all of our colleagues with a deeper understanding of the Black experience and the need for these important measures to be passed. So we're working really hard to get this done through veto session. You will hear more about this as time go on. Thank you, Commissioner, for letting me share this with you and all of your guests here.
Thank you, Leader Leifer. Thank you for your work and your commitment to an agenda that can actually help transform the lives of Black families from the southern part of Illinois to the northern part. So we thank you again for your leadership. A few of your colleagues have joined us this evening. So I want to acknowledge State Representative, my state rep, Camille Lilly is with us. Thank you so much for being here, sister. And another state rep of the 1st District is Representative, I call him Omar, Representative Williams. Representative Williams, thank you for your leadership and thank you for being here this evening. We just have a few more presentations tonight and we're going to get to these questions. I have mayors. One of the most dynamic things about the 1st District is that the 1st District is represented, particularly in the suburban part, by 4 Black mayors. And all 4 of them are here tonight. And the first person that will give a couple of minutes of presentation about the work that she has done and how Cook County has collaborated with her village is the Mayor of Broadview, Mayor Katrina Thompson. Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, and all the guests that's on the panel tonight. Just real quick and brief, I just want to say that I stand in solidarity with, as it relates to justice and reform with you all. And I think it's important for all of us that's on this Zoom or listening on the phone. I think it's important for you all to get behind the leaders that's pushing these agendas that's going to enhance the quality of life for all of us. So with that being said, thank you. I want to say it's been almost 4 years since I've become the first elected Black female in the village of Broadview, and I'm honored and blessed to be serving at this level. And since I've been in this role, Cook County has served Broadview very well under the leadership of Commissioner Johnson. So far, we have received $1,493,585 in Cook County funding. And so some of that funding is come from the CDBG grant, Invest in Cook County. We just recently got awarded another $158,000 from Invest in Cook County. And that is related to transportation and freight. And that's so important to the village of Broadview because we are a balanced community. And what that means for us is we serve residents, commercial, and industrial. And then industrial is a big part of how we transport for the 18-wheeler truck. So that money is going to come in handy as it relates to the Bragg Drive project, which is about a $6 million project that's been ongoing. So we thank you guys for making sure that you invest back into Broadview. Coming online, we're getting ready to break ground mid-October for our first senior housing development. So it's a 70-unit development project that would cater to seniors and veterans in the Proviso Township. So we are excited about that, and that's another partnership with the Cook County and Commissioner Johnson getting behind us on that initiative as it relates to housing. As it relates to, I know some of the topics tonight that we're going to be addressing is police accountability and transformation in healthcare, and all of these things are important to the village of Broadview, especially access to healthcare. As the pandemic came online, we know in our community that we had lack of resources. as it relates to the quality of the healthcare, as it relates to people being tested, providing PPE to the community. And it was overwhelming and it was taxing. And like Senator said, in a short period of time, we just got slam dunk with like one event after the next, after the next. And so I'm blessed to be standing with my colleagues in the Proviso Township, Mayor Harvey, Mayor Perkins, and Mayor Hoskins, as we work together on a lot of the issues that impact the Black community. And so as the president of our Proviso Municipal League, we are starting to have conversation on how we can build our communities together to work in unison when it comes to these tough topics. Because one thing that I've identified, although our services mimic each other, the services to our residents are very, very different. And so we're starting to bridge the communities together. So this Saturday, we're going to launch our first Proviso Tour Day Proviso, which is not an actually race or a tour. It's actually a bike ride that we're going to ride through Broadview, Bellwood, and Maywood. And that's with, I guess the idea came out, our bike ride every week, and Trustee Jones, that's with the Village of Maywood, said, how about we do this bike ride throughout the town? So it's going to be something small on a small level. And next year we anticipate on that program going. But when we talk about healthcare, we talk about how we have a healthy lifestyle, how we can reduce medication in the Black community, transportation. Biking can also help us reduce transportation. As we know, we lack some of the services like bike lanes so that we can safely ride on our streets. So hopefully some good things will come out of the bike initiative as it relates to the Tour Day Proviso. But we're looking forward to working with you, Commissioner Johnson, and your team. I appreciate your leadership. And when I first met Commissioner Johnson, I did tell him for the things that he stand on, for righteousness for the people, I can get behind that style of leadership. And so I'm here to support his agenda as he's moved the county forward, because he's going to need us. So I'm asking you all to just get behind him and lift him up and lift up all of our Black leaders, because it's very challenging in roles like this when we start talking about getting to the root cause of systemic racism. So we're going to need that type of leadership. And I appreciate you and your staff for keeping Broadview on the forefront of when opportunities come available and initiatives that you get behind us as we move the village forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Thompson. We will continue to support one another in order to move our communities forward. We are also joined by another history maker, not just Mayor Katrina Thompson. This young brother has made history a year ago, being elected the mayor of Forest Park. I'm happy to be joined tonight by the mayor of Forest Park, Mayor Rory Hoskins. Mayor Hoskins.
Good evening, everybody. It was certainly a challenge simply to unmute on Zoom this evening. But in all seriousness, I'm happy to join Commissioner Johnson and to be a part of this State of the District presentation. Here in Forest Park, we certainly appreciate Commissioner Johnson's leadership, his attentiveness to the First District. Yeah, I've known Commissioner Johnson, I think, since 2011. And when I look back at the time we first met, I certainly didn't picture us being in this picture today, me serving as mayor and him leading the First District. But since the time I've been in office as mayor of Forest Park, Commissioner Johnson has been accessible to the village, which I very much appreciate, whether it's hosting an economic forum at River Edge Hospital located in Forest Park, or simply joining me to tour the Forest Park Community Center and to see where many of our children go for before and after school services. Of course, this was prior to the pandemic. Or just joining us for the annual Juneteenth family pool party. Commissioner Johnson has been available to participate in Forest Park activities. Activities enjoyed by all people in Forest Park, at the Park District, at the softball picnic, and other community events. But on the business side of things, Commissioner Johnson has certainly delivered for the village of Forest Park. We have repeatedly been awarded funds through the CDBG Community Development Block Grant Program. Most recently, similar to Broadview, we were allowed to participate in the Invest in Cook program. And with these funds, we'll build a nice walking path along the Van Buren area corridor in Forest Park that will link up the Prairie Path. We certainly appreciate his advocacy during the pandemic. In the very early days of the Illinois lockdown, I'm talking about March and April, I was able to reach Commissioner Johnson and make sure that our first responders had the PPE that they needed. This might have involved, conversations with the Office of Emergency Management, but Commissioner Johnson facilitated those conversations, which we very much appreciate. Later in the pandemic, we got our fair allocation of CARES Act funds. And like I said, on a number of occasions, Commissioner Johnson has been on the grounds. He's interacted with businesses in Forest Park. He's paid special attention to some of the more vulnerable Black-owned businesses in Forest Park, patronizing these businesses directly and advocating for funding to keep these businesses afloat during the pandemic through county funding programs and whatnot. So we very much appreciate the partnership. I personally appreciate the ability to work with him as well as my other mayors, Commissioner Thompson, Commissioner Perkins, and Mayor Harvey, as well as the legislators and Congressman Davis. But Forest Park continues to thrive as a member of the First District, in large part through a strong partnership. We're certainly focused on advancing the Black agenda. Leader Lightford gave a very eloquent timeline of some of the occurrences during this past summer. So when it was June 19th, Commissioner Johnson was with us. But he was actually with us on June 19th events before the pandemic. But again, I'll say I was very proud to march with other mayors, with legislative leaders, and with community leaders. And so we look forward to continuing the partnership, continuing to work with other Proviso Township municipalities, and meeting the needs of Forest Park residents. So thank you for everything you're doing, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor Hoskins, for your work and your commitment to the residents of Forest Park and the opportunity to collaborate. Certainly a few years ago, we did not see ourselves in this position. Certainly our wives did not, and they're still with us, which is most important. So we're also joined by a couple of more mayors, and then we'll get to our county presentations, and then we'll wrap it up. But we're also very pleased to be joined by, I believe, one of the most dynamic neighborhoods and communities throughout the First District. It has so much rich history, and that's the village of Maywood. Mayor Edwina Perkins, thank you and welcome.
Hello, everyone. I would just like to thank Commissioner Brandon for this virtual town hall meeting and allowing me to participate. I just want to touch on a few things going on in the village of Maywood right now. The first thing I want to touch on is that I am so very proud that our financial picture is improving greatly in our TIF. Maywood has the highest performing out of 36 TIF districts in Proviso Township. I also want to thank the county and the state for the CARES funds that are coming our way. Also, the next thing I would like to talk about is the 72 unit affordable housing development is coming close to being completed. And after October 1st, they will be accepting applications for occupants that have a salary of at least $30,000 per year. Our FFF, who bought 4 3-flat buildings for the disabled and veterans, have confirmed that they will be building 9 more here in the village. Finally, I was able to fully appoint a new board of fire and police commissioners who have taken off and running to acquire more police officers, as well as a fully appointed economic development commission, whom have began working with staff to improve in that area. Great things are happening in Maywood, and I'm proud to be in the leadership during this time. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mayor Perkins, and thank you for the work that you are working and completing in the village of Maywood. Our final mayor that we're going to hear from today is one of the baddest brothers, I believe, in the First District. I get my style from this brother. But I also want to recognize one of our trustees from the Village of Maywood, which is Trustee Miguel Jones. Thank you for being here. Finally, from the Village of Bellwood, our dynamic leader, Mayor Andre Harvey. Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening, everybody. Guys, hey, you know what? You passing me in style, man. You doing your thing, so I appreciate that. Hey, I would like to thank Commissioner Johnson for having us all here today. It's a pleasure to be here. Obviously, we are going through one of the most challenging periods in our lifetime. As we know, the COVID-19 pandemic has no borders. While we hope, I'm sorry. Okay. While we hope that the end is near, we must be realistic and prepare for the long haul. The Village of Bellwood has been experiencing a resurgence. We have not raised village real estate taxes in over a decade. We have attracted dozens of new businesses and balanced 10 consecutive budgets. If this was a regular year, I would be able to go on about how well the Village of Bellwood is doing. In fact, up until March, our projections showed that financially, this was going to be one of the best years ever. But that changed on March 15th. While the village has been doing better than many other towns in Cook County, we have also felt the financial crush impacted by COVID-19. The village's portion of the CARES Act has been extremely important for the village. We have been able to allocate funds for the act to cover payroll for our first responders and provide PPE for our staff and residents. Unlike other towns that needed to lay off personnel, we have been able to weather this storm without reducing staff or even cutting back on the hours. This would have not been done if not possible for the leadership of Commissioner Johnson, as well as the assistance of the County Board for the CARES Act. Because of the CARES Act and the additional help from the county, we didn't reduce or eliminate this infrastructure projects that we have been budgeted for 2020. For example, some of our street resurfacing was funded through the partnerships with the county. We are continuing our housing incentives with the construction of 2 new homes, and we'll be breaking ground on the project in the next few weeks. The project would not have been possible without the partnering with Commissioner Johnson and the county and the Brownstone Revolving Loan Fund site for remediation. Several years ago, the county amended the 6B tax incentive to allow businesses to apply for more than one 6B incentive extension. Without this ability, our businesses would not be able to remain in operation. We will be passing resolutions on the next board meeting to allow for some of our business to take advantage of this 6B incentive. Finally, we want to thank the county for joining us along with Broadview, Maywood, and Melrose Park in the formulation of the West Cook Regional Enterprise Zone this year. The zone is an extremely important tool to help us keep and attract new businesses. I can speak for hours on the partnership with the county, but I think these are examples to show how important it is to have a partnership with the county and Commissioner Johnson. I would like to say also, it is a pleasure to be able to work so close with the political leaders that are here on this Zoom call tonight. I tell people sometimes I have a curse and a blessing. I've worked for the Village of Bellwood for 32 years, and I have never, in the 32 years of working here, which is my first term as mayor, but my 32 years of working here, I have not seen the communities, the Maywood, Bellwood, Broadview, Forest Park communities, and our senator and state rep working so close together to help our communities. This is a phenomenal year and time for our communities. And I will say also, this is Commander Johnson's first term, and he has done more work in the first term that I've seen in the 32 years that I have been in the Village of Bellwood. So I want to thank you for bringing us together. I want to thank all of the trustees and board members that are here in the Village of Bellwood and the clerk that work together with Commissioner Johnson and his team. Thank you, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor Harvey. Thank you for your commitment to Cook County. There's so much we can discuss, you all, but we only have about 15 to 20 minutes left here. So I wanted to make sure we have a chance to hear from some of our department agencies. of Cook County. I'll be back in a second, but I'm going to turn it back over to our outreach director, Ashley Horton. Ashley?
All right, everybody. So thank you, mayors. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Thank you, Senate Majority Leader Kimberly Lightford and others. I would like to now introduce Xochitl Flores, our Bureau Chief, Department of Economic Development.
Thank you, Ashley. Good evening. My name is Xochitl Flores, and I am the Bureau Chief of the Cook County Bureau of Economic Development. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for this opportunity to provide our businesses and constituents with an overview of the Cook County Equitable Recovery Planning efforts. The Bureau of Economic Development is committed to equitable recovery efforts focused on addressing the critical needs of both residents and businesses. Our process has really been extremely comprehensive and evolving over the last several months as we have relied on many of our partners and stakeholders to assist us in diving into data that we have available and needs in Cook County to develop a robust plan to provide critical training, supportive services, and financial support for both businesses and community residents to address housing, workforce, small business assistance, utility assistance, food insecurities, and people dealing with homelessness. Oh, thank you, Karen. If you could go to slide 3. Thank you. Since the first days of the pandemic, the Cook County Bureau of Economic Development has mobilized to address the most critical needs of residents and small businesses in suburban Cook County. We formed a national partnership with community lenders and a host of economic development organizations to launch the Cook County Community Recovery Initiative. This initiative has provided rapid relief supports, assistance, and access to grants for suburban small businesses. And we are working hand in hand every week with our partners to help businesses access these funds that have been made available, not just through the county, but also through the federal government, the state, and other resources. Early on in the pandemic, when we reached out to businesses, one thing that resonated was that they were getting overwhelmed with tons of information and were finding it difficult to really figure out what was that trusted resource, who was going to be there helping them access these funds. So we quickly deployed with our partners a series of webinars that has been very critical to helping these businesses just figure out, how do you access these funds? What funds should they be accessing? Should they be going to a loan program, or should they look at different types of grants that are available? So our webinars have been extremely well attended. Our partners have helped the small businesses at this point access even more than the $7 million in loans approved. And this has been through the Paycheck Protection Program that the federal government launched. These are state resources that have been made available. But we are trying to assess, how do we provide that needed one-on-one assistance through our partners? And we have found that these educational webinars have been very well received by these businesses. Karen, if you could go to the next slide. Additionally, we have been coordinating with our county partners and grantees to also assess the critical social service needs in suburban Cook County. We have provided emergency funding to suburban homeless shelters as they've adapted to the new demands for shelter in a COVID-19 world. We have also developed a comprehensive strategy to keep families in their homes. Last month, we rolled out our rental assistance program, and we launched it with $20 million of CARES funding, CARES CRF funding. And we have also, as I said, provided $5 million to meet critical social service needs. We will be also announcing several new programs over the next couple of weeks, including mortgage assistance, eviction protection, and housing stabilization programs. Next slide, please. So now a bit about the programs and additional funding that we have currently available to residents. Karen, can you go to the next slide? As Commissioner Johnson mentioned, this pandemic is amplifying the inequities that our most vulnerable businesses and communities are already facing. And economic development is going to be critical to our recovery efforts. Cook County's approach to the design and implementation of all of our COVID-19 economic relief programs really embody equity with resources targeted to residents, businesses, and social services in communities with the greatest need. This has been something that has been highlighted across the board. Our plan is to use the $82 million in CARES Act recovery funds in a way that really reaches the most vulnerable communities. We know that 25% of renters are having a hard time paying their rent, while nationally there is a 30% delinquency rate in mortgage payments. We also know that more than 70,000 of suburban Cook County home-owning households are making less than $75,000, have at least one family member working in an at-risk occupation. Because of all this information, we really created and allocated approximately 60% of our CRF funding to housing and emergency social service needs. We also recently launched our rental assistance program that received over 5,500 applications that are currently being reviewed by our program administrator, the Housing Authority of Cook County. Next month, we will be launching our mortgage assistance program to continue addressing the critical needs of our most vulnerable residents. In addition to these housing initiatives, we understand the importance of supporting critical wraparound services such as food and shelter supports, housing counseling, and utility assistance. Our goal is to assist residents and their families to remain safely in their homes. That is key because we realize that if we don't take care of those critical needs, we will be facing a much more dire situation. So last week, we also launched our $12.6 million Small Business Assistance Program. Our small business program provides recovery grants and technical assistance supports with an expanded focus on our county's manufacturing sector. We know that manufacturing sector has many great paying jobs, and we are working very closely with our manufacturers to make sure that they remain resilient during this time. Finally, we have also allocated $4 million of CRF funding to enhance workforce efforts of the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, which already invests nearly $70 million in the workforce services for both the city and county hiring and training efforts. As we have seen from the pandemic numbers, economic statistics, and current housing trends, it is evident that the need for supportive services and programs is going to remain critical and urgent over the next 18 to 24 months. In the Bureau of Economic Development, we are really rolling up our sleeves. We're working with our commissioners, we are working with our community organizations and other partners and stakeholders to facilitate an equitable distribution and streamline development of robust program offerings. I encourage everyone to sign up for our newsletter to get updates about all of our programs that we will continue to launch. And also, we want to be a trusted resource for all of our business and community residents. So please go to our website. It's on our site right now, www.cookcountyil.gov/recovery. You can sign up to receive our newsletter, and it'll give you all the information of our upcoming programs and even our current programs that we have available for residents and businesses. So we are here to help. We are here to partner with the state and other resources to make sure that these valuable resources are getting to those that need it the most. So thank you to everyone, and thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for allowing me to present today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sochi. We will make sure that we add all of those details here in the chat for anyone that may have questions. And now I would like to introduce our Superintendent of the Department of Transportation and Highways, Mr. John Yonan.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. And Commissioner Johnson, thank you for the privilege of being able to serve you with just the ability to just share some of the things that are happening in the transportation department. First and foremost, I really believe, as we've heard over and over again, that knowledge allows us to have the power to be able to collaborate on things. And I want to first start off with the knowledge that in our region, there are 4 jurisdictional responsibilities when it comes to the roadway network. You have state roads, you have county roads, you have municipal roadways, and we have township roadways. And based on those 4 responsibilities, the way funding flows within these roadway jurisdictions, it becomes a tangled mess. And realizing that everybody, at this meeting, very few even know that they are on a county road. And the reality in the first district is, outside of just a few frontage roads along the Eisenhower Expressway, the first district has not had the Department of Transportation make any investments in the past. And under President Preckwinkle's leadership, that needed to change. And so there has been, a huge effort made with our long-range transportation plan, and under Commissioner Johnson's leadership, to ensure that the first district gets those equitable investments in transportation. And so that's what I wanted to spend a few minutes to talk about. You heard a couple mayors talk about this Invest in Cook program. So because again, every other jurisdiction, the municipalities only rebuild their roads within their municipality, townships when they're township roads, states when it's on a state road. What we believe at Cook County under Commissioner Johnson's leadership is that it's all the same transportation network, and we've got to collaborate our funds and make the investments outside of just Cook County, the roadway network. And so that's how the Invest in Cook program works. And here before you is where you see, in a very transparent way, the way we go about evaluating the projects. The Invest in Cook program is an $8.5 million annual program that sets aside money for agencies and municipalities to be able to tap some of the resources that Commissioner Johnson is a steward of. So this is basically the flow chart of how we get to 2 real key points here: is a score that's a quantitative analysis, but also a qualitative analysis that the 2 mayors that spoke of having their projects awarded. What we'd like to do is not go off of a raw score, but actually do a phone call qualitative analysis through the lens of equity as to where we want to make some of these investments. And so the next slide, Karen, really shows how 15% of our scoring, and this is basically the way we come up with our quantitative analysis, will look at communities of that kind of needy, what they call based on the CMAP, or what they basically identify here as low moderate income communities. And what we'll always do with our investment is we'll make those evaluations before we bring in those other communities when it comes to those projects being selected. So that's kind of the way that we're building equity into these investments. Is we won't evaluate a Bellwood with a Schaumburg or a Palatine with a Maywood. We'll go through those communities that really put that equity lens through the low and moderate income communities and make that first flush of decisions. So that's kind of where we will then get to the next slide that basically identified in the first district. And again, under Commissioner Johnson's leadership, the conversation of really allowing the subject matter expert with that kind of lens be able to select the winning projects. And earlier today, again, you had heard that Mayor Thompson was very celebratory in the next 2 slides, with the first one being the Village of Broadview, how her belief that the village's investments in freight industry is what's going to create opportunities for economic development in her community. And this Braga Drive project was something that was funded previously, and now the next phase, again, under Commissioner Johnson's leadership, that project is going to get funded. And the next project that's listed here is the Village of Forest Park. Again, that investment that we want to make in not only the roadway network, but complete streets, trails that connect opportunities of communities to connect with one another when they're out there enjoying, the beauty of the prairie path. So that's kind of what I wanted to share, but I also want, because we've got such a distinguished, group of legislators that took a very hard vote a year and a half ago on revenue for the transportation industry. And today, those legislators really want to make these local agencies be able to benefit from the gas tax increase that took place, which again is the transportation bill. And so there is now, once again, an opportunity under Commissioner Johnson to exercise some leadership with some of these legislators that we believe we've modeled how our money is not going to county roads. And I really believe that, again, the legislators want to make that investments, not in just state IDOT roadways in the first district, but in a similar way in communities where we're promoting economic and community development. And we stand ready under Commissioner Johnson's leadership to make those projects investments in the first district. So thank you, Commissioner, for this opportunity to serve, and look forward to any of the questions and ways I can serve in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Superintendent Yonan. We will be sure to share more information here in the chat. And as always, if you have any questions, you can post them there and we will make sure that they are answered. Next, I would like to introduce our Chief Medical Officer with Cook County Department of Public Health, Dr. Joshi. Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good,
This is
good.
Kiran Joshi, Senior Medical Officer and co-lead for the Cook County Department of Public Health. Thank you so much for that introduction. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for the opportunity to address this group and to be a part of this really august group of speakers. So I think many of you have heard today some really grim news that we've surpassed 1 million deaths worldwide. So clearly this is very, very concerning, and we're hoping to, we're working very hard at the Cook County Department of Public Health and throughout Cook County government to prevent an increase or a surge in cases in suburban Cook County. Some of you may be aware that we've had 60,000 cases of COVID-19 since January 24th, when we had our first case of COVID-19 in Illinois. And we have been, our health department and our staff have been working on the ground and tirelessly since that date towards, again, the end of stopping the spread of COVID. Where it currently stands is that we have a positivity rate, which is the number of cases divided by the number of tests at about 5.1%. And I think that's good news. We're below the 8% threshold that the state has indicated, if passed, would result in some increased mitigation steps. But we have been seeing that go up and down. And so again, we're working very hard to keep that number down and control the spread. We are, again, very concerned about a potential fall surge, and some data that we've looked at do indicate that there is the possibility of an increase in cases and a potential surge in November. And as you can imagine, this potential surge in COVID-19 cases combined with a lot of influenza could be really taxing on our health system. And that is something that I see as one of my main jobs, that is to protect the health system. And I think we all can play a role in doing that by going out and getting a flu shot. So if there's one thing you get out of my comments this evening, it's that you should vaccinate, vaccinate, and vaccinate. So in addition to that, obviously, we want folks to continue masking and continue physical distancing. So what are some specific things that we have been doing about COVID-19 as a health department? Many of you are aware of the term contact tracing. It's been widely covered in the media. Contact tracing is essentially having a conversation, speaking to someone with COVID-19, making sure that they know to stay home so that they don't transmit COVID to anyone else, and that they're safe. And then also finding out who they may have been in contact with so that we can make sure that those contacts in turn are quarantining for that 14-day period. So this is really difficult work, as you can imagine, given the numbers that I just stated earlier. So fortunately, we do have a grant from the state and are working to really rapidly hire hundreds of additional staff, including contact tracers and case investigators, to do this crucial work. As a part of our contact tracing effort, we're also going to be working with community-based organizations in suburban Cook County, and we'll be awarding $5.5 million to community-based organizations to support our initiative. So these CBOs, these community-based organizations, will do things like conduct education and outreach, expand existing programs and services to help households with isolation or quarantine, and lessen the really difficult social and economic impacts that folks with COVID-19 can experience. Some additional work that we're doing includes responding to thousands and thousands of inquiries from the public. We've had a public information line and phone bank for months, and the good folks that have been manning that have been very, very busy. We've also investigated with our existing staff many cases of COVID-19, particularly those over the summer and in the late spring at long-term care facilities and nursing homes. Our Communicable Disease staff have also provided tailored assistance to schools, congregate settings, and others who needed assistance responding to a positive case of COVID-19 in their organization. We've also been working to protect the most vulnerable among us, including essential workers. So we've responded to over 250 complaints by workers of workplace violations, and we've reached out to those businesses to educate owners and proprietors about masking and physical distancing requirements. And sometimes that means having our staff go on site and conduct inspections. And finally, we've hosted a series of very successful webinars for school and law enforcement leaders so they could learn more about the state's public health guidance and protect the residents of all the municipalities in the 1st District. We're really proud and pleased and thrilled to support the President's Office, the Cook County Board President's Office, in its Mask Up campaign to help increase awareness of just how important mask wearing is to the fight against COVID-19. To learn more about this and any of our other work, please check out our website at cookcountypublichealth.org. I want to end by thanking you, Commissioner Johnson, and all the other elected officials on this webinar for doing the vital work that you do, for fighting the good fight. The science is clear that austerity is very harmful and that progressive policy is good for public health. So with that, I thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Joshi. I would like to introduce our final presentation from the county this evening. Emily Orenstein, please, from the Housing Authority of Cook County.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Great, thanks. So, first off, I really want to thank Commissioner Johnson for inviting us to this event. My name is Emily Orenstein, and I am in charge of policy and communication for the Housing Authority of Cook County, for the HAC. And I am excited to present a quick rundown of the services that HAC provides to residents of the 1st District. So we've unfortunately had to close our offices to the public since March, but we are still meeting with our residents remotely to address all of their needs. And since the beginning of the pandemic, we've collaborated with the Bureau of Economic Development, as you heard before, to launch the Cook County Rental Assistance Program, as well as the upcoming Mortgage Assistance Program. And because our residents pay rental amounts based on their income, we're able to ensure that no HAC resident is going to lose their housing during this pandemic because they are unable to pay their rent. So these are just some quick overall stats on our presence in the 1st District. Through our Housing Choice Voucher Program, we house 367 families in the district. So we subsidize the difference between 30% of the family's income and the monthly rent. So over the course of the year, the total value of this subsidy is over $2.8 million. Next slide. So this just shows the layout of where our voucher recipients live in the 1st District. Next slide. So in addition to our Housing Choice vouchers, we provide 135 project-based vouchers, which subsidize a unit in a privately owned and operated property. So we house 5 families in Forest Park through Access West Cook, which operates scattered site properties throughout the western suburbs for low-income people with disabilities. Next slide. We subsidize 21 households at Senior Suites of Bellwood, which is a housing community for seniors age 62 and up. Next slide. And we also provide housing for 109 veterans and their families at the Freedom's Path facility at the Edward Hines Jr. VA Medical Center. So of these households, over 90 of them were experiencing homelessness before moving into Freedom's Path. And through our VASH program, we connect the most vulnerable families of veterans to the supportive services that they need to live independently. Next slide. But at HAC, we believe that our mission goes beyond just providing people with decent and affordable housing. We want to support our residents in whatever way we can, using whatever funding is available to us. So we provide a range of human services to our residents, including connections to job opportunities and training, summer programming for young people like the Forest Preserves experience, which you can see in this photo here. We provide transportation assistance for seniors, school supplies, and homeownership workshops. Next slide. And during this pandemic, we're really excited to have launched our Internet Essentials partnership with Comcast. So we're providing broadband internet access at no cost to residents with school-age children for the 2020-21 school year. And so far, 35 families in the first district have already signed up for internet access. In the next phase of this program, we're hoping to connect families who still don't have enough devices for e-learning to extra laptops and Chromebooks so that all of the children and their families can participate in e-learning to the fullest of their ability. Next slide. We also operate Be Well, which is a comprehensive website that offers resources for residents to manage their health, finances, and education. Be Well is a tool for all Cook County residents. So it's not just for HAC residents. We are offering these resources for anyone who lives in the county. So Be Well provides resources and information for parents. Next slide, sorry. Regarding early childhood development, including tips for fostering brain development, connections to affordable childcare, anything that first-time parents might need. Next slide. We also offer resources for school-age children on after-school programming, college preparedness, and money management. Next slide. And for adults, we connect visitors with GED prep and apprenticeships, with legal and financial tools, with health advice, and also senior-specific services. Next slide. So looking forward, we're hoping to expand our human services programming to meet the needs of families across the county, including special supports for remote learning and other coronavirus-related relief efforts. Previously, we launched a program where we delivered groceries and PPE to all of our residents in HAC properties, and we're hoping to continue doing that kind of work. And we also consistently advocate for affordable housing on the local, state, and federal level, both independently and in conjunction with organizations such as the Council for Large Public Housing Authorities, the National Low Income Housing Coalition, the Chicago Area Fair Housing Alliance. We work as closely as we can with local housing advocacy organizations. That's something we really pride ourselves on. And among public housing authorities, we're a national leader in progressive policies, property maintenance, and advocacy. You can see some op-eds by our executive director, Rich Minacchio, in the Tribune and the Daily Herald, talking about the need for affordable housing throughout the county for all people. Next slide. So we encourage everyone who's interested to take a look at Be Well, to share it with folks you know. And if you have any questions about our work, feel free to contact me. Thanks so much. Trying to do that on a speed run because I know we're running out of time.
No problem. Thank you so much, Emily. And thank you to all of our county agencies, elected officials for joining us tonight and for the fabulous presentations. Cook County Commissioner Brandi Johnson, take it away.
Hey, thank you, Ashley, so much. How about that, you all? Let's give a nice virtual round of applause for all of our presenters this evening. Let me just close by, first of all, thanking all of our elected leaders who represent the First District. Congressman Davis, while in DC, taking a few moments of his time. Of course, Senate President Don Harmon, who's been a longtime friend of mine. Leader Lightford, who gave us so much hope in the little bit of time that she had to talk about the importance of a Black agenda. How about all of our wonderful dynamic mayors? We represent eight villages within the First District. We only had time to squeeze in 4 tonight, but I want to thank our mayors of course, Mayor Katrina Thompson, and of course, those red glasses, sister, you obviously just stole the show tonight with those. I ain't mad at you. I have to step my game up next time. I want to thank, of course, Rory Hoskins, Mayor Edwina Perkins, of course, Andre Harvey, the mayor of Bellwood. Certainly, of course, Sochi and John and Dr. Joshi and Emily, thank you for your work. This stuff doesn't work without our team. And so you had a chance to connect with Ashley Horton, who is our outreach director, Clene Hedspeth, who is our legislative director. We have our district director on the line as well, Kenyatta Land, and of course, our executive coordinator, which is Lisa Schrantz. There are things that we can all be proud of in this moment, but we certainly are very much concerned about the fight that is in front of us. We got to have a fair tax. Billionaires and millionaires are spending millions of dollars to protect their interests. Vote yes on the fair tax. That revenue is going to provide the necessary resources that we need to fund the vital services that Cook County offers. We also have to make sure that we're fighting to bring justice to Black lives. It's why I passed the resolution, the Justice for Black Lives resolution, that will redirect money away from the failed system of incarceration and policing into vital services like healthcare and housing and transportation. We also have to make sure that we have a budget that reflects our values. We got to protect our most vulnerable, and it's why I sponsored a key resolution, Save Our Seniors, which of course brought more accountability to the most vulnerable. The last thing that, of course, that I'll say is continue to support our neighbors to the best of your ability. There's a lot that we can continue to be proud of, but there's still much to be done. So thank you all for spending time with us on this wonderful evening. God bless you. And you finished 2 minutes early. That's not bad for a Church of God in Christ, brother. So thank you all for being here. God bless you and good night.
Good night, Commissioner Brandon. Thank you.
Good job, Commissioner. Great job, Ashley.
Thank
Good
you,
job,
Rita.
Ashley. Good job, Brandon.
Good job, everybody.
Oh, Mayor. Good
Yeah.
job,
Buen
Mayor.
trabajo, amigo.
Thank you so much.
Amigo, buen trabajo, amigo.
Yes, gracias, gracias.
Good job.
Hush now, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you by and by. Just move on up toward your destination. Though you may find from time to time complication. Bite your lip and take the trip. Though there may be wet road ahead and you cannot slip, just move on up. For peace you'll find into the steeple of beautiful people where there's only one kind. So hush now, child, and don't cry. Your folks might understand you by and by. Move on up and keep on wishing. Remember your dream is your only scheme, so keep on pushing. Take nothing less than the supreme best. Do not obey rumors people say, but you can pass the test. Just move on up to a greater up. Move on up. We move on up. Watch out, we just move on up. We move on up. Move on up.
Good night, everyone, and thank you so much again.
Good night. Thank you all.
Buen trabajo. Buen trabajo. Good night. Nice music.
Thanks,
Good night.
Oscar.
Okay, take care. Great job, guys, ladies.
Thanks.
Team.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, nice job, everyone. I feel bad. I forgot to thank Karen. For her.
Did you do a wardrobe change?
Where's Karen? She's still here?
There she is.
We should probably, Karen. We should probably go off Facebook Live since I don't change clothes and everything now. I'd rather get comfortable. Hey, that was
Thank you
fun.
for the